Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Welcome back, history enthusiasts, to the History AI podcast, where the past isn't just a set of dates and dusty figures, it's the wildest, weirdest, and most wonderful stories ever told. I'm your host Chuck, and with me, as always, is the man who reads history books like they're detective novels, Marco.
Hey there, folks. And Chuck, you're not wrong. I do have a magnifying glass at hand. But instead of solving crimes, I'm on the lookout for those hidden gems of history. And speaking of gems, today's episode is a true treasure trove about an American legend.
Absolutely, Marco. Today we're taking a journey through the life of Sergeant Alvin C. York, a man who went from humble beginnings to becoming one of the most decorated American soldiers of World War I.
A real rags to rifles story. Before we march into the heart of the battle, let's reel the clocks back and start with his early life.
Alvin York was born into a poor family in a two-room log cabin in Pall Mall, Tennessee, on December 13, 1887.
That cabin wasn't just log, Chuck, it was blog, as in, a pioneer's version of a vlog, telling the story of daily survival.
Good one, Marco. The York family could have used a bit more subscribers to their farming channel, that's for sure. Alvin was the third of 11 children.
11 children, Chuck? The Yorks didn't just have a family tree, they had a family forest.
They sure did, Marco. And young Alvin grew up hunting, fishing, and helping his father with blacksmithing.
With all that blacksmithing, Alvin was probably the only kid who could genuinely say, I forged my parents' signature, and mean it literally.
Spot on, Marco. But life wasn't all laughter. After his father's death, Alvin had to help provide for his family, and he worked as a day laborer. It was tough going.
I hear he even tried his hand at singing and playing the guitar.
That's right, Alvin was as musical as he was muscular. A real Renaissance man in overalls.
A guy who could hammer out a tune on the anvil and the guitar. Talk about heavy metal.
Now, before the war, Alvin was actually a conscientious objector, based on his religious beliefs. He was a part of the Pacifist Church of Christ and Christian Union.
Goes to show, Chuck, the pen may be mightier than the sword, but it was the rifle that rewrote Alvin's story.
Indeed, Marco. But what changed for York? Why did he decide to fight?
Well, after a long struggle with his conscience and much discussion with his superiors about the moral justifications of war, York concluded that he could serve, saying, I reckon I got to go and help save my country.
From pacifist to patriot. Now, let's get into the thick of it, the battle that made him a legend.
We're talking about October 8, 1918, in the Argonne Forest, folks.
York and his unit were given the task to take out some German machine gun positions, and let me tell you, it was as tough as trying to win an argument with a cat.
You can't, they're always positively certain they're right. But York wasn't arguing with cats, he was up against a nest of German machine guns.
And he went at it with the ferocity of a starving raccoon at a campsite. York, armed only with a rifle and a revolver, took aim and... Actually, let's pause that tale right there. It's a good moment for a word from our sponsor. From the mind behind the History AI podcast comes an electrifying journey into the past. A ripple through time, Franklin's Folly. Dive into a tale where Benjamin Franklin, America's beloved inventor, takes an unexpected journey through time. But with his leap, he unleashes a powerful ripple. Now, with dark forces lurking in the shadows, harnessing this energy to shatter and enslave the world, it's a race against time. Will Franklin fix the future? Or will history rewrite itself? Uncover the secrets. A ripple through time, Franklin's Folly. Time has never been more fragile. On Amazon now, and we're back. Where were we? Ah, yes, the Argonne Forest.
With his sharpshooting skills, York dispatched the machine gunners and, along with his men, captured 132 German soldiers.
Talk about a one-man army. He basically walked into a war zone with a gun and walked out with a parade.
For his bravery, York was awarded the Medal of Honor, and he became an instant hero back home.
After the war, York returned to Tennessee and married Gracie Williams.
He also worked for educational and agricultural development in his community, proving that his talents extended far beyond the battlefield.
And his legacy? The Sergeant York Patriotic Foundation, established to preserve his life story, his papers, and his legacy of peace, education, and valor.
Alvin York passed away on September 2, 1964, but his memory marches on.
That it does, Marco. So, there you have it, folks. The life and times of Sergeant Alvin C. York, a man who could play the guitar as skillfully as he could a German machine gun nest.
And before we sign off, remember to subscribe, rate, and share the History AI podcast. It helps us keep the lights on and the history flowing.
Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive into history's most incredible stories.
Until then, keep your humor sharp and your history sharper.
And don't forget, even a history podcast can have a future if you keep on listening. Take care, everyone.